everybody, it's your friendly digital technology librarian, Christy, and I'm here with you on this beautiful October day for yet another Film Rec Friday. Now, if you've been following us on Facebook, then you probably already know that we are in the midst of Banned Books Week. And to go with that theme today, every recommendation we're offering is going to be based on a frequently banned or challenged novel. These can come from really any period of time, and I did try to get a mix of more contemporary and from more classic works. So hopefully one of these titles will catch your interest. Now, before we move on, I wanted to do a really quick promo for some upcoming things that we've got going on. October, of course, is the month of Halloween, so and as I am a huge fan of horror films, I'm going to be doing a couple extra special film recommendation videos. They won't be shown on Fridays, but they will be popped up on Facebook and YouTube, so please do keep your eye out for those, especially if you're also a horror film fan. Those will be popping up again, as I mentioned, quite soon. In any case, without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and get right to those banned book recommendations. These all come from our 3 video services, as always, which you can access for free with your Milan-Berlin Library card, and those services are CleveNet Overdrive, Hoopla Digital, and Canopy. Again, I hope you find something really, really exciting within these recommendations. Okay, as usual, our first recommendations are all going to come from CleveNet's Overdrive, and the first rec I want to mention is based on George Orwell's 1984. This production is from 1956 and it's directed by the British director Michael Anderson. Now, for just basic background, 1984 follows a man named Winston in what is very clearly a dystopian society. It's run by this authoritarian militaristic government that centers around this entity, Big Brother, that's all-seeing, all-knowing, always watching you. I believe Orwell originally intended it to sort of mimic Stalin's government at that time as well. And we follow Winston through his life in this world, and as he makes decisions that make living in that particular world more and more difficult. Now, it's definitely an incredibly dark novel. So, considering the time period, this particular adaptation throws some of the text out the window and definitely Hollywoods it up a little bit. The edges are definitely softened. Again, not quite as dark. Its ending is certainly going for a different vibe from the ending of the book, but you still get very much that same feeling throughout the story, which is definitely the most important part of the tale. You know, having that sort of strangled, always being watched vibe going on is a huge part of the storyline. So if you're looking for sort of that kind of era's adaptation of a very classic work, definitely check out 1984. Cinematography is really well done. And it's always interesting to me to see the different adaptations of super famous works. And this is definitely one that is worth checking out. So again, 1984, available on CleveNet's Overdrive. My second recommendation from Overdrive is based on Lois Lowry's The Giver. Film title is the same. Now, The Giver was actually one of my favorite books growing up. I always found it absolutely fascinating. I read it, I can't even tell you how many times. It follows the story of Jonas, a young man who is living in what seems to be a perfect society where everyone gets along, everyone has the perfect job suited to the perfect personalities. Nothing ever seems particularly out of place. Everyone is content with their existence. And of course, in that sort of perfect contentment is a lot of insidious sort of subtext. I mean, there's so much going on underneath the surface. um, Jonas begins to meet with this leader memorist called the Giver. The Giver has the memories of their society and knows everything about the past. Everyone else is sort of a blank slate in that regard. And as Jonas learns more and more from this character about who these people really are, what's really going on in the seedy underbelly of things, the more he becomes disillusioned with this perfect idealistic society that he's become a part of. And the more he, struggles against having to follow the rules that the society has put together for them, and he comes to realize he has to break away from it. And this film definitely does a good job of sort of keying into that unraveling of, I don't know if you want to describe it as innocence or contentment, but or even ignorance, but it definitely pulls you in as you watch this sort of systematic fall happen. And it's really very well done. The young actors do a very nice job. And then the adult cast is anchored by people like Jeff Bridges. You've got solid performances from Alexander Skarsgård. I mean, it's very, very well done. And I would say if you're a fan of the book, you should definitely check out the film. It definitely changes some things, but I believe that the full intention of the novel is still there. The cinematography is well done. I love the certain elements that they do as the film unwinds. It goes from being this very monochromatic sepia tone into full color. The more he learns, the more he sees, the more and it just does a good job of illustrating how far his mind is expanding, and how his consciousness is like really growing. So definitely recommend The Giver. It's fantastic. If you've never read the book, 100% recommend reading the book, whether you're a teen, whether you're an adult. It's absolutely fantastic, and the adaptation is very, very solid as well. Now, my last recommendation from CleveNet's Overdrive is for a classic novel. It's the film adaptation of The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. Now, this adaptation has a really phenomenal cast. It was made for Masterpiece Theater's American Playhouse, and it's quite faithful to the book, in fact. So if you're looking for something that really follows that text and has really solid performances, and they are excellent. The kids in it are really, really good. And that's always such a difficult thing, I feel, to find children performers who offer acting that is very in the moment and very, very much believable. That's absolutely what you will find in this adaptation. So as you journey along with Huck, you definitely get caught up in the story. You're not distracted by overacting. So if you're looking for something classic that's a fairly faithful adaptation, definitely recommend Adventures of Huckleberry Finn from PBS's American Playhouse. Totally worth checking out. Excellent option. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to our second set of recommendations, all of which are available through Hoopla Digital. And the very first recommendation from Hoopla is going to be for a film adaptation of Jonathan Safran Foer's Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close. Now, the script for this adaptation was done by Eric Roth, who also did the scripts for Forrest Gump and Curious Case of Benjamin Button, both of which are fantastic films. And this adaptation also features performances from Tom Hanks, Sandra Bullock, and a number of other really, really fantastic and prominent actors. Now, the story centers around um, Tom Hanks and Sandra Bullock's character's son and how he learns to cope after his father is killed in the 9/11 uh, Twin Tower attacks. He had always done these little sort of puzzle and adventures with his father prior to the incident, where the father would leave clues and he would have to go and find his way to, the answers of all of these little riddles. Um, and in the aftermath of 9/11, um, the young boy finds what he thinks is going to be the very last clue that his father had set up. So it's really important to him, and it to figure out this riddle. He never says it. Obviously, he's a young boy, but he clearly needs the closure of this to move along. Now he meets a number of really phenomenal characters throughout his adventures, including one performed by the ridiculously amazing Max von Sydow. And it's definitely a coming of age film. It's also just a really beautiful sort of family drama. Um, if you're looking for something that's a bit of a tearjerker, but also heartwarming at the same time, this is absolutely one to check out. Again, it's extremely loud and incredibly close and available on Hoopla. You won't regret it. It definitely is moving and quite beautifully done. The second recommendation I want to make from Hoopla is for a 2009 BBC production of The Diary of Anne Frank. Now, when this aired in the UK, it was actually a 5-night miniseries. Every night was like a 30-minute, like, segment that followed along with a small piece of her life, and that was described by the journals, you know. And then when the production that is available on Hoopla is a slightly shortened version of that original 5-night airing. It goes from being, about 200 minutes to about 140, I want to say. They cut just a little bit over an hour from the full production, but you definitely get the full story. Really amazing actors involved in it, including Felicity Jones. She plays Margot. And if you followed Game of Thrones, Ian Glenn, he played Ser Jorah. He's in the cast and he's amazing. The whole story is really well done, the whole production, I mean. And whether or not you're familiar with Anne Frank's tale, you'll 100% be gripped by both the performances and the script and the production. It really is an excellent adaptation. So if you get the chance, please do check out The Diary of Anne Frank. 100% worth checking out. And it will definitely move you while you're watching. My last recommendation from our Hoopla selections is for a film based on Isabel Allende's House of the Spirits. This production was, I believe, done in the 90s. It stars Jeremy Irons, who is always an amazing actor, Meryl Streep, also phenomenal, Winona Ryder, Antonio Banderas, and Allende's book itself would be very hard to adapt, but they do a fairly decent job. I would say that the movie is definitely quite different from the book. Different characters are focused on, and they definitely put an emphasis on different parts of the storyline, but still definitely worth checking out. Again, performances are really where you're going to get the most bang for your buck. They put together an incredible cast, and it absolutely shows the interactions between the characters that they do end up focusing on in the film really, really, really shine so very much. So again, House of the Spirits by Isabel Allende, the adaptation, is available on Hoopla Digital. Check it out. All right, so my very last two recommendations, of course, come from our Canopy service, and we'll get started with the filmed adaptation of William Golding's Lord of the Flies. Now, this adaptation is from the 1960s. It's part of the Criterion Collection and is definitely considered the definitive adaptation. It is an extraordinary book, and this is an extraordinary adaptation of it. The basic storyline follows a group of young boys who are on a plane during a pretty vaguely described war that's going on. We have no idea, what's behind it or anything. Anyway, their plane is shot down and they land on this deserted island. These young boys had been, from what we understand, from a very civilized society, with your standard rules and regulations, and they were all, part of a group of people who understood that. But what the story does is follow these young men, and they really are just children, as everything they've learned until this point sort of slowly devolves. You have essentially two young leaders, one who tries to keep with the rules that he's learned how to act in a civil society, listening to other people, having certain rules that you have to follow just in order to get along and to have peace and accord amongst each other. And then there's this other young man who wants to just have the freedom to do whatever he wants whenever he wants, and he encourages his little band of followers to do the same, that these rules are unimportant. And this de-evolution is really, really fascinating to watch, and it's a hard film to watch, honestly, in a lot of ways, because it's very believable what happens to these kids. I mean, on the one hand, every time something not great happens, you are sort of shocked, but at the same time, not surprised. And these kids do an amazing, amazing job with the acting. I mean, it's really phenomenally done. I can't say enough good things about it. If you get the chance, this is one. This is, of all of the films I recommend, one that I think everybody should see. So again, the 1963 adaptation of William Golding's Lord of the Flies, available on Canopy as well as Criterion Collection. Please do check it out. It's amazing. And my very last recommendation for the week is for an adaptation of D.H. Lawrence's Lady Chatterley's Lover. This adaptation is a French film just called Lady Chatterley. It is absolutely beautifully, beautifully filmed. Like, the cinematography is everything. You're in the countryside and everything is lush and green, and definitely falls into the sort of vibe you get from Lawrence's original novel, that follows this young, beautiful Lady Chatterley. She lives on this sort of perfect estate with her much, much older husband, who happens to be confined to a wheelchair. And, while she definitely loves her husband, she finds herself growing more and more bored with her existence and falls into these affairs with others, with another person. So, the whole feel of the film really, really is added to by this perfect, lush looking setting that you've got going on. Now, this French adaptation has two versions that are available on Canopy. There's the theatrical film cut, but it also has a two-part extended cut edition, so those will all be available through the link. I will say it's definitely a rated R film, so just be aware of that. But it is very, very well done, and I recommend it to anyone who's a fan of the novel. It does depart in some ways and delves into certain aspects of the book, and sort of skims over others, but I don't know that that's particularly bad. I think it's a definitely a more modern interpretation of the character. So again, Lady Chatterley, available on Canopy either as a original theatrical cut or a two-part extended cut. Now, those are all of my recommendations for Banned Book Week films. So if you have anything that you've seen and that you think we should be watching, please do, as always, recommend it in the comments below. If you are looking for a particular theme that you'd like to see us cover in the future, also recommend that to us as well. One more time, I wanted to remind you that we will be doing some extra special Halloween horror film recs that are coming up in the next couple of weeks. So keep your eye out for those. Those will not be coming out on Fridays. Those will come out on different days of the week, and they will be promoted on Facebook as well as posted over here in YouTube. So with that, I hope everybody has a fantastic weekend and that you find fun films to watch, and hopefully we will see you all next week. Bye.